Hi, everyone. One of the best ways for me to re engage with my intuition and creativity and my deepest core self is novelty. So I thought I'd take a trip to Paris and revisit a city that, no matter how many times I go, always offers a treasure trove of unique, new, special experiences. So let's see what happens during this little vacation I took. Let's see how I transform as I go from what I know to exploring the unknown. At the top of my list of new places to explore in Paris was a neighborhood called La Marais. Once home to the aristocracy of Paris, La Marais still has many mansions, which are called hotels. These hotels have been restored and turned into museums, for example, the Picasso Museum. But before I ventured into the unknown La Marais district, I had the comfortable feeling of seeing some places that I had visited previously. First of all was La Châtelet des Halles, which is one of the biggest subway terminals really in the entire world. It sees 150,000 visitors a day between the mall itself and the subway and train terminals. And it's hard to believe that it was once a small medieval market. As soon as you take the escalators up from the train station at La Châtelet des Halles, you see the beautiful church of Saint Eustache. The Church of Saint Eustache is a 500-year-old building that has seen many important moments in world history. Louis XIV, more commonly known as the Sun King of France, took his first communion there. Moliere was baptized there, and Mozart's mother's funeral was at Saint Eustache. And on a less sacred note, during the French Revolution, the church was, like most churches in Paris, desecrated and looted. It was completely closed to worship and used for a time as the quote unquote temple of agriculture, also known as a food storage warehouse. Saint Eustache is adorned by beautiful chapels all along the sides of this sacred space. And out of all of the priceless works of art, the best known is probably a painting called The Disciples of Emmaus by Rubens. By the time I left Saint Eustache, I had worked up an appetite and decided it was time for my breakfast. So I headed off to experience a new bakery, at least new to me. It was the historic bakery founded by one of the pastry chefs of the royal family several centuries ago, and it was the best breakfast I've ever had in my life. You can check out that video in the link above. With my belly full, I headed out to the heart of the Le Marais district, and on the way, I saw France's National Museum of Modern Art, which they call the Centre Georges Pompidou. The Pompidou is considered one of the world's most important cultural institutions. It has been visited by more than 200 million people since it opened, and it's the only museum in France that can come close to rivaling the Louvre in popularity. The Pompidou is wild in its architecture. It's the first example of an architect creating a quote unquote inside out building. So the structural systems, the mechanical systems, and air circulation are all exposed on the exterior of the building rather than being hidden. As I walked by the Pompidou, I finally remembered the first time I went inside the museum in 2015. I remember seeing the wonderful painting Bildnis der Journalistin Sylvia von Harden by Otto Dix. I remember feeling very proud to see a painting by Mark Rothko because I had visited Rothko Chapel many times in Houston and I felt like I knew something by seeing the painting there. And of course, I love the painting by Jackson Pollock that they curate. But my favorite painting in Pompidou, the one that really grabbed my heart, was titled Blue Monochrome, and it's by Yves Klein. As I traveled down the streets once walked by the French aristocracy in the Marais district, I was pleasantly surprised to pass a building called Bonham, and I used to live on Bonham Road in Houston, which literally means Good Man Road. I also enjoyed walking past the massive French Tourism Center, which was decorated on the outside by beautiful waterfalls that people were having lunch and reading by. And as I got closer, I realized, oh, they're getting ready for the 2024 Olympics. There were the Olympic rings outside, and that was just really cool to see. As I enjoyed my little walk down the heart of the Marais district, I was passing all sorts of historic French mansions, and one of them is now the National Archives. And it was just a beautiful building, and the architecture and the gardens on the inside. And unfortunately, I couldn't actually go into the library, it was closed, but it was fascinating to just be near some of the really ancient, important documents that the archives house. The archives house many of the documents that make France who it truly is, including Napoleon I's Testament, the Journal of Louis XVI, and the French constitutions. As I stood in front of the place that held the scrapbook of France's collective history, I thought of my hometown and going home to my parents' house and how the various pictures and mementos from my childhood are stored there in a very treasured way that my parents take care of, just like the National Archives take care of the documents of France. As I continued walking through the heart of the Marais district, I could feel my heart lighten, I could feel my mind expand, my body relax, and I could feel my feet being magically pulled by the mysterious forces of serendipity toward the Rue de Montmartre, which has been the inspiration for If you'd like to hear more about how serendipity changed my life as it magically dragged me to the Basilica of the Sacré-Cœur, or the Sacred Heart, at the top of the Rue de Montmartre, then check out the next video. And as always, please remember that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly